Imagine the narcissist standing center stage, waiting for the applause, but the theater is empty. For years, he curated a specific persona, the bad boy, the tortured soul, the misunderstood rebel who played by his own rules. It was a magnetic performance that drew you in, convincing you that his cruelty was actually depth and his silence was actually mystery. But time is a ruthless editor. What happens when the audience grows up, the lights come on, and the bad boy is revealed to be nothing more than an aging, petulant child throwing a tantrum in an empty room? This is the anatomy of his final, pathetic unmasking. The bad boy archetype is one of the most seductive weapons in the narcissist's arsenal. It triggers a primal rescue fantasy in high-empathy people. You believe that beneath the rough exterior lay a heart of gold that only you could unlock. He relied on this. He weaponized his damaged past to excuse his damaging present. But there comes a tipping point, a moment of psychological singularity, where the excuse stops working. The tortured artist becomes the unemployed leech. The passionate fighter becomes the abusive drunk. The myth evaporates, leaving only the man. We need to dissect the panic that sets in when his charm stops yielding returns. You see, the narcissist doesn't just want attention, he needs compliance. The bad boy act was a tool to ensure your compliance through intimidation and intrigue. When you, and the world around him, stop reacting with fascination and start reacting with boredom, he suffers a narcissistic injury so severe it feels like a physical blow. He isn't losing a relationship, he is losing the script to the only movie he knows how to star in. Have you noticed the shift in his eyes when his stories don't land? In the beginning, when he told you about his crazy exes or his fights with authority, you leaned in, wide-eyed. Now, you lean back, arms crossed, seeing the pattern. This withdrawal of your energy is his greatest nightmare. He realizes that his currency has devalued. The edginess that used to buy him forgiveness now only buys him isolation. He is a magician whose tricks have been published on the internet. Everyone knows how the rabbit gets in the hat, and nobody is clapping. The tragedy of the aging bad boy is that he refuses to update his software. He is running an operating system designed for a teenager on the hardware of a middle-aged man. Society grants a certain leniency to youth. Recklessness is mistaken for spirit. But as he ages, that same recklessness looks like instability. The leather jacket metaphorically cracks. The smoldering gaze just looks tired. He is becoming a caricature of himself, a Halloween costume worn in July. And he knows it. The question you must ask yourself is, did you love him or did you love the project? The bad boy is fundamentally a project. He presents himself as a puzzle with missing pieces, forcing you to do the emotional labor of completing him. When you stop believing the act, you stop doing the work. You stop trying to fix him because you realize he isn't broken, he is functioning exactly as designed. He is a machine built to consume energy, and you have finally cut the power cord. What does he do when the applause dies? He doesn't reflect, he escalates. This is the danger zone. When the subtle manipulation of the cool loner fails, he switches to the overt aggression of the cornered animal. He creates chaos to prove he still matters. If he can't be the hero of your story, and he can't be the sexy villain, he will settle for being the monster. To a narcissist, being hated is preferable to being ignored. Hatred implies impact. Indifference implies obsolescence. You are witnessing the extinction burst of a personality disorder. In behavioral psychology, when a reinforced behavior, his acting out, stops producing the reward, your attention, the behavior spikes in intensity before it dies out. He will drive faster, drink harder, yell louder, and post darker things on social media. He is trying to shock the system back into alignment. He is screaming at the sky, demanding that the sun revolve around him one last time. This script isn't just about his collapse, it's about your liberation from the theater of the absurd. You spent years buying tickets to a show that was rigging the reviews. Now you are standing outside the theater, looking at the poster, realizing the main actor never learned his lines, he just improvised cruelty and called it art. The bad boy was never a person, he was a defense mechanism wrapped in a leather jacket. Are you ready to see what lies beneath the mask when the glue dries out? Are you ready to understand the pathetic reality of a man who never grew up? We are going to peel back the layers of this specific narcissistic performance. It is time to stop romanticizing the wreckage and start analyzing the cause. He didn't lose his edge, he lost his audience. And without an audience, the show cannot go on. To understand the collapse, we must analyze the psychology of the rebel. The narcissist adopts the bad boy persona because it lowers expectations while raising status. If he frames himself as a rule breaker, he doesn't have to follow societal norms of kindness, consistency, or fidelity. It is a get-out-of-jail-free card he printed himself. He convinced you that his inability to function like a normal adult was actually a refusal to conform. But when you stop believing the lie, you see it for what it is, arrested development. Deep down, the bad boy persona is a shield against core shame. The narcissist feels inherently unlovable and inadequate. By adopting a persona that rejects the world, he preemptively rejects the rejection he fears. "I don't care what people think" is actually code for "I am terrified of what people think, so I will pretend I am above their judgment." When you stop buying the act, you pierce this shield. You expose the shivering, insecure child hiding behind the bravado. Consider the concept of negative supply. Narcissists crave reaction. The bad boy thrives on shock value. He wants you to be shocked by his callousness, his daring, his unconventional life. When you respond with a yawn or a grey rock face, you starve him. You are denying him the oxygen of outrage. He feels his very existence fading because he has tied his identity to his ability to provoke. A non-provoked narcissist is a non-existent narcissist in his own mind. The narcissist relies on visceral metaphors to maintain his image. He is the wolf, the lone ranger, the storm. When the belief fades, these metaphors invert. The wolf becomes a stray dog. The lone ranger becomes the lonely hermit. The storm becomes a drizzle. The cinematic quality of his life degrades into a low-budget reality TV show. He feels this degradation in his bones. It manifests as a deep, grinding depression or a frantic, manic energy to restore the illusion. Internal chaos ensues because the bad boy act requires a foil. It requires a good girl or savior to contrast against. Without you playing the role of the redeeming angel, his darkness loses its context. He isn't a redemption arc anymore, he's just a tragedy. He looks in the mirror and doesn't see a misunderstood anti-hero, he sees a villain with no depth. The narrative structure of his life collapses without your contrasting light. He experiences pathological envy of those who don't need an act to be loved. He sees men who are kind, stable, and boring, in his eyes, getting the respect and love he craves but cannot sustain. He despises normies because they possess the one thing he cannot fake, authenticity. As his act fails, his envy turns into bitterness. He becomes the old man at the bar complaining about how the world has gone soft, unaware that the world has simply moved on without him. The bad boy relies on intermittent reinforcement, the breadcrumbing of affection mixed with cruelty. This works brilliantly on new victims. But once you have developed narcissistic abuse awareness, the math changes. You realize the highs aren't worth the lows. You see the cycle. When he tries to pull the lever for a dopamine hit, and you don't respond, the machine jams. He starts pressing all the buttons at once, love-bombing, devaluing, discarding, in a chaotic frenzy. He begins to project his internal deadness onto you. Since he can no longer dazzle you with his darkness, he accuses you of being boring, uptight, or unadventurous. "You used to be fun," he sneers. What he means is, you used to be easily manipulated. He attacks your growth because your maturity highlights his stagnation. He needs you to remain the naive spectator. Your evolution is a direct threat to his fictional character. The mask of sanity for a bad boy is actually a mask of insanity. He feigns being wild to hide that he is actually empty. When the act fails, the emptiness leaks out. You might catch him staring blankly at a wall, or dropping the facade in moments of exhaustion. These are the microleaks of the true self. It is chilling to witness because there is no personality there, only a collection of reactions and coping mechanisms glued together by shame. Finally, realize that his fear is ordinary. The bad boy's greatest fear isn't death or jail, it is being ordinary. It is being just another guy in line at the grocery store. When you stop believing his act, you reduce him to the status of an ordinary human being with ordinary flaws. This is a psychological castration for a narcissist. He would rather be infamous than average. By treating him as average, you inflict the ultimate wound. The dramatic turning point arrives when he attempts a grand gesture to reboot the system and it fails. Maybe he buys a motorcycle he can't afford, gets a ridiculous tattoo, or starts a fight at a family gathering. In the past, this would have centered the attention on him. Now, people just look away in embarrassment. The silence that follows his stunt is deafening. It is the sound of his social capital hitting zero. He realizes he has lost narrative control. He used to be the author of the relationship, writing the plot twists. Now, you are writing your own script. When he tries to bait you with a text like "I'm in trouble," and you reply with "call 911" instead of rushing over, the power dynamic shifts tectonically. You have fired him as the director of your life. He is now just an extra, shouting lines from a different movie. This is the moment he switches to the victim role seamlessly. The bad boy instantly morphs into the broken boy. He tells stories of his abusive childhood, his depression, his demons. He trades the leather jacket for a hospital gown metaphorically. He tries to weaponize your pity since he can no longer weaponize your lust. It is a plot twist designed to keep you hooked, but if you see through it, it looks desperate and manipulative. He may attempt to triangulate you with a new, younger audience. He finds someone naive who still believes the act. He parades her in front of you, looking for a reaction. See? She thinks I'm dangerous and exciting. But instead of jealousy, you feel relief. You look at the new supply and think, I hope she survives the performance. You are watching a rerun of a show you already cancelled. The narcissist reacts to this loss of control with paranoid ideation. He believes you are turning people against him. He thinks you are laughing at him. He projects his own deceitfulness onto you. Who are you talking to? What are you saying? He becomes an interrogator because he knows that if the truth of his mediocrity gets out, his game is over. He is terrified of the smear campaign of truth. Watch for the discard of the self. Since the bad boy persona isn't working, he might abruptly change personalities. Suddenly he is a spiritual guru or a successful entrepreneur. He tries on a new mask to see if it sticks. This shape-shifting is disorienting but revealing. It proves there is no core identity. He is a chameleon scrolling through backgrounds, trying to find one that hides his lack of color. The dramatic irony is that while he thinks he is being dark and mysterious, the world sees him as sad and predictable. Friends start rolling their eyes. Oh, there he goes again, playing the victim rebel. The turning point is when his behavior becomes a punchline in your friend group. Laughter is the most effective exorcism of a narcissist's power. When he becomes a joke, he loses his fangs. He may resort to stalking or harassment to force himself back into your reality. If he can't be the star of your life, he will be the villain in your nightmares. But even this feels different now. It feels pathetic. The text messages aren't scary, they are repetitive. The drive-bys aren't threatening, they are desperate. You realize he has nothing else to do. He has no life outside of his obsession with your reaction. The psychological plot twist, you realize he is the one who is trapped. You used to feel trapped by his control, but now you see he is trapped in a compulsive loop of seeking validation. He cannot stop performing. He is a prisoner of his own pathology. You can walk out the door and be anyone you want. He has to stay and be the bad boy until the day he dies. He is serving a life sentence in a prison of his own making. The final shift in this chapter is your indifference. You stop checking his social media not because you are blocking him to heal, but because you literally forgot to look. He becomes background noise. The bad boy who once commanded the room is now just static on the radio. You change the station, and the music is suddenly clear, major key, and yours. Now we enter the phase of collapse. Without the fuel of your fear or admiration, the narcissist's ego begins to cannibalize itself. He enters a state of narcissistic decompensation. He stops grooming himself. He gains or loses weight rapidly. The cool aesthetic rots away, revealing a disheveled, angry man. The physical decline is often rapid and shocking, a Dorian Gray painting coming to life. Social consequences hit hard. The bad boy act relies on a high turnover rate of friends and lovers. Eventually, he runs out of new people in his immediate vicinity. He gets a reputation. Stay away from him, his mess. The whisper network activates. He finds himself uninvited, blocked, and ghosted. He sits alone in bars where he used to hold court, a king with no subjects. Internal panic turns into vindictive rage. He lashes out at anyone who dares to see him clearly. He might get fired from his job for insubordination. The rebel act doesn't work in HR. He might get into legal trouble. The consequences he avoided for years by charming his way out suddenly stick. Reality comes to collect its debt, and the interest rate is staggering. He begins to hoover indiscriminately. He texts exes from 10 years ago. He reaches out to people he discarded with cruel insults. He is scraping the bottom of the barrel for any scrap of supply. Hey stranger, he texts. It reeks of desperation. He is a vampire with no fangs, trying to gum his way into a vein. It is a pathetic display of emotional starvation. The bad boy narrative requires a tragic backstory. Now, he amplifies this to absurd levels. He invents illnesses, crises, or enemies. He needs a calamity to justify his failure to launch. The world is against me, he cries. He becomes a conspiracy theorist of his own life, believing there is a cabal of exes dedicating their lives to ruining him. He cannot accept that he ruined himself. The tone becomes dark and harsh as he faces the mortality of influence. He realizes he can no longer compete with younger, actual bad boys. He is an analog villain in a digital world. He tries to use slang he doesn't understand, wear clothes that don't fit, and hang out in places where he is the oldest person by 2 decades. It is cringe-inducing. It is the fellow kids meme brought to tragic life. His unraveling ego leads to isolation. He withdraws into a bunker of resentment. He spends his days online, arguing with strangers, trolling successful people, and consuming content that validates his victimhood. The internet becomes his only stage, where he can still pretend to be an avatar of power. In the real world, he is a ghost. Brutally truthful, he becomes boring. The chaos that was once addictive is now just exhausting noise. People drift away not out of malice, but out of fatigue. He tells the same stories, fights the same fights, plays the same victim card. He is a broken record skipping on a track nobody wants to hear anymore. His toxicity loses its potency and just becomes pollution. He may experience a psychotic break or severe depressive episode. The gap between his grandiose self, the god, and his real self, the failed man, becomes too wide to bridge. He falls into the chasm. This is the danger point for self-harm or extreme reckless behavior. It is the final, desperate attempt to feel something other than the crushing weight of mediocrity. The social consequence is erasure. He isn't remembered as a legend, he is remembered as a warning. People tell stories about him, but they are cautionary tales. Don't end up like him. He becomes the example of what not to be. His legacy is a trail of wreckage and a do not enter sign. Here is the final truth. You didn't break him, you exposed him. He was always this fragile. The bad boy was a costume held together by your belief. When you stopped believing, the costume fell apart. You were the glue, the lighting, and the audience. You were the special effects team that made him look larger than life. The narcissist didn't lose his cool, he lost his cover. He was using the rebel act to cover up his inability to connect. Real rebels have a cause, he only had an ego. Real outsiders have a philosophy, he only had a pathology. You realize that standing outside of society isn't brave if you're only doing it because you can't function within it. Empowerment comes from seeing the smallness of his game. He played a small game for small stakes, control over one person. You are playing a big game. Life, growth, connection, reality. You have outgrown the sandbox he is still throwing sand in. You are building a castle while he is digging a hole. You begin to feel a strange emotion, pity. Not the pity that makes you go back, but the pity you feel for a roadkill. It is a distant, detached sadness that a human being could be so empty. This pity is the opposite of love. It is the final nail in the coffin of the relationship. You cannot love a man you pity, you can only survive him. The bad boy act was a lie, but your love was real. That is the victory. You were capable of loving a mirage. Imagine what you can do with a real person. You have a capacity for depth that he will never know. He scammed you, but you kept your soul. He kept the change, and it wasn't worth much anyway. Refrain from mocking him to his face. His irrelevance is punishment enough. Let him live in the shadow of his own potential. Let him age into the obscurity he fears. Your silence is the loudest megaphone. Your happiness is the blinding light he cannot look at. He will continue to search for new believers, but the pool is shrinking. He is a cult leader with no followers. He will end up alone, surrounded by the relics of his glory days, telling stories to the walls. And you? You will be miles away, laughing with real friends, living a life that doesn't require a script. The leather jacket hangs in the closet, gathering dust. The motorcycle is sold. The stories are stale. The bad boy is dead. Long live the survivor. You have walked through the fire of his chaos and burned away everything that wasn't you. You are the diamond formed in his pressure. One day, you will see someone like him, another bad boy posing in the wild, and you won't feel attraction. You will feel a laugh bubbling up in your throat. You will recognize the costume. You will wink at the universe and keep walking. You are vaccinated against his brand of poison. He didn't get away with it. He has to wake up every morning and be him. He has to live inside that empty, terrified mind every second of every day. That is the ultimate justice. He is trapped in the performance, and the theater is dark. You have left the building. And the fresh air outside has never tasted so sweet.